a robot of a snowman that
Suffering
has
from overheating.
suffering
Pretty
from
disastrous.
overheating. Exactly.
Pretty disastrous for a snowman.
I think you'd have melted.
But
So DLSS has always been about improving the rendering capabilities of real-time graphics.
what I'm really surprised is the speed of adoption of new ideas. It just signals the fact that we're really at the edge of something.
Like the robot arm.
Yeah, it's a huge motivation, yes, to reflect on things you built. We topped it up with a cherry on a pie, which was Springboard Event on Thursday.
It was a weird thing. It felt completely normal because the ride felt like a regular car journey. Lobster claws.
Lobster, of course. That was a great way to end the week.
Hello, welcome to Inside GTC Podcast. In our pre-event episode, we looked ahead to GTC 2026, where my guests Rafi and Vova were here to talk about what they were most excited about and give us some predictions. And as if by magic, they're both back here in the studio, fresh from San Jose. So first of all, well done on getting here. I know you've literally touched down a mere hours ago. So first of all, Rafi, how are you feeling?
I think fresh is quite generous.
Okay.
But I'm holding on. It was a fantastic week at GTC, and I can't wait to get into all the topics. Yeah.
Excellent. We're going to dig into that very, very soon. What about you, Vova? How did you find the show, and how are you feeling today?
Yeah, it feels like one leg is still there, one leg is here. But the show was really amazing. There's so much to unwrap today, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
First things first, let's talk about the keynote. Obviously, everybody gets very excited about Jensen's keynote. The leather jacket was back in full force. The announcements were in full flow. Where did you watch it, first of all?
So I watched it at GTC Park, which is the park very close to the conference center. And they have a giant screen in the middle of the park, so you can, the overflow. There's so many people that attend GTC every year. The stadium can't hold everyone. So a lot of people go to the park to watch it. So that's where I was with an ice cream in my hand.
So you were amongst lots of people hearing all of these announcements for the first time. Was there a real buzz? What were people most excited about?
Yeah, a real buzz. They were most excited about the robotic side of things that came about, the physical AI, and how the NVIDIA's tech stack continues to go from strength to strength. Those are the things that people are really excited about. And prior to Jensen taking the stage, there's an elaborate pre-show discussion where lots of different startups and even major companies like Intel and AMD all weigh in on the announcement. So that was a really good pre-show as well.
Very cool. Now, the reason I asked you where you watched it is because I know you were somewhere very different entirely. You were in the thick of it with your ice cream, taking it all in, the buzz. However, you chose to watch the keynote somewhere different entirely for a very specific reason. Tell us a bit more.
I just remembered how long the queues were last year and how long it really took to get in. And it's hard to sometimes even guarantee you're going to get a seat. So I decided to not take the risk this year and just watched it out of comfort zone in a hotel room, which at the same time was quite fun because, as you know, there were quite a few cool announcements. We've been all making bets on agentic space as a service this year, and Jensen delivered on that. And there were a few announcements, especially regarding Nemo that became available publicly right away, that I was able to kind of tap in as Jensen was presenting things and discover a few Easter eggs around Nemo specifically. So I basically dropped a line to my agent saying, hey, check it out ASAP. Let me know how this maps out across our system, what's new. And I was pretty surprised to see the response from an agent saying, oh, well, all these cool features from an opportunity to bring the Nemo ecosystem from, Nemotrons to NIMs to AIQs and so on, vGPUs, to OpenClaw ecosystem, as well as the security shell that NVIDIA called OpenShell for enterprise type of customers, specifically built on top of OpenClaw and surrounding it. But yeah, the Easter egg basically was this Matrix-like looking background with Web UI, where Jensen has claws instead of hands.
Lobster claws.
Lobster, of course. And basically, and basically, yeah. When you have this like green text on black background for your web UI to interact with Nemo claw, and yeah, you prompt it and it responds to you back like Jensen would. So it kind of replicates his at least public identity in its responses and plays with claws. It was quite cute. Yeah, I have not hesitated to post it on X right away.
You know, when NVIDIA, particularly at GTC week, they talk about how developers are their focus. So that's an example right there where there's utility and high-end tools that developers appreciate, but also these little Easter eggs and sort of a sense of humor that brings the humanity of it all to life as well.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's very forward thinking on their behalf, that there'll be people like you going, okay, what's all this about? Rather than there's Rafi with his ice cream, with his feet up, listening with everyone else, taking it all in. So let's talk about some of the announcements then. We did have some predictions before you go. Were we bob on? Did we get any right? Tell us what stood out for you then. What were the key things that Jensen announced and how far off were we?
So even though it was only maybe a couple of weeks ago that we recorded the pre-GTC podcast, with the amount of announcements that came out at GTC, I may not remember every one of the predictions, but one of the ones that I think we talked about inferencing being an important thing for the industry right now, you know, in 2026, inferencing being a big use case. And I think we were talking about how dedicated hardware to supercharge the inferencing step seemed like the right product to kind of reveal. It wasn't quite what I was expecting, but there was some architecture, the Vera Rubin architecture that was announced. That was kind of the closest thing to what we thought. And that's not out yet, but it'll be out in 27. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, totally. And I think just to add a bit more color around this is, I think one prediction that we got really right was the fact that now kind of traditional SaaS is moving to agentic offering as a service. And the expectation, or let's say soft predictions at the moment, is that basically any employee could be using anywhere around 8,000 agents throughout whatever workflows that they're after. And I think just to like kind of wrap up the numbers, what was really impressive is Jensen underlining the fact that over the last 10 years, architecture has unlocked about 40 million times more compute. And I think it really shows that the industry is ready for high inferencing bandwidth. And there were a number of announcements really complementing it from the architectures like Rubin, Vera, but then also Grok 3, which completely removed the copper connections and brought the photon physics into processing, which basically unlocks way different speeds for linking everything. So yeah, really exciting, and definitely within the momentum that this year has unlocked so far for agentic AI. Mm-hmm. And yeah, let's see what this goes to.
Robots were another prediction, and I think the most memorable robot obviously was towards the end when Olaf showed up. Olaf from Frozen, the animated movie.
Dropped by,
because there's always like a robot at the end of the show, and this time it was Olaf, and it was a collaboration between NVIDIA and Disney. Last year there was a Star Wars robot, and this year it was Olaf, and pretty compelling demonstration of how robotics could be used to entertain and create like a little character that you empathize with. And it matched the movement from the movie pretty well, considering it was a real thing in the physical world. So that was quite cool.
Yeah, I think like obviously everyone's seen this super cute thing, and everyone started trying to like unwrap and unlock understanding of how it was put together. And actually, Omniverse was a significant part of it, because in a nutshell, if you check what's under the actual costume of that snowman, is a very complex robotic system that actually suffers a lot from overheating, and apparently the whole configuration was trained on digital twins to figure out optimal configurations for it to operate safely. And I find it quite ironic, actually, a robot of a snowman that
Suffering
has
from overheating.
suffering
Pretty
from
disastrous.
overheating. Exactly.
Pretty disastrous for a
I
snowman.
think it'd have melted.
But who would think about it, right? It became possible specifically because of high fidelity physics simulations through Omniverse and ability to train.
In the virtual space, training it in the virtual space before deploying in the physical space.
Exactly. Quite fascinating. And it just shows the opportunity behind these ecosystems.
They didn't go so far as putting claws on Olaf, though, did they? Disney probably didn't let them do that.
No, probably not. It's really great. I mean, what NVIDIA do really well, though, with these keynotes, the reason that they are so popular and likened to the Super Bowl in the tech world is that they are very visual. They do make it very exciting. So by its very nature, excuse me for this, but sometimes this sort of really complicated technology can be a bit dry, can't it? For anybody who's not really in that space, why would you want to watch? NVIDIA do that very well because they make it tangible to people and they do things a little bit differently as well. So it was a really good way to see this. Of course, you are Mr. Omniverse, not literally, but you are an ambassador for. So was there anything that caught your eye or anything that you're excited about sort of moving forward? Any sort of expanded capabilities of the program? Talk to us a bit more about that.
Well, Omniverse is very closely linked to the Alliance for OpenUSD, USD being a fundamental technology for Omniverse. And more every year we see NVIDIA pushing the limits of what's possible in the USD architecture. It's not just about the 3D scenes and digital twins that you can build with USD, but it's also about integrating agentic and generative AI systems into it. So you don't need to have 3D visualization to make the most of the USD architecture. You could be using it to have agents communicate with each other. So that's really exciting because then you could see a future where you have automated systems built using USD, which means they're going to be cross-compatible with multiple systems out there. So it's kind of laying the foundations for a platform where no matter what sector your business is in, it'll be able to communicate in theory really seamlessly with other businesses, which is really what we need in this industry. So that was a pretty exciting development, and Omniverse is at the core of it. Yeah.
Fab. We heard you talk a little bit about OpenClaw and Nemo Claw. For those that aren't familiar with what that is, break it down a little bit for us. And what capabilities will this bring? What can you see sort of happening in the future with it? You're quite excited about it. Tell us a bit more about what it is.
Like how everyone looks at me.
You.
Well, right. So OpenClaw is open source AI assistant, highly inspired from environments like Cloud Code, Cursor, and so on, but with basically all the guardrails removed from it. It was invented by Peter Steinberger. It was one of the quickest adopted tools out there in the whole history of GitHub. And you actually can see a nice animation presented at GTC by Jensen surrounding that with all the milestones that happen around there. It was announced just in the beginning of the year, and it really transformed the entire industry. And I think, in a way, it became an iconic moment for agentic ecosystems.
In fact, Jensen compared it to the adoption of Linux, but exponentially quicker.
Exponentially quicker. And yeah, I think you called it like a ChatGPT moment for agents. So NVIDIA really impressed me with the fact how quickly they actually looked at it and released something of their own, they basically created this solution called Nemo Claw that allows you to bring various elements from NVIDIA's ecosystem into OpenClaw and connect it to make it highly functional, alongside with a security shell that they called OpenShell that now allows you to not only consider it for your own personal isolated use case, but also start adopting it for enterprise customers.
And that's a key distinction there, because to me, it seemed like NVIDIA really noticed a gap in the market at exactly the right time, because in the enterprise, companies are very interested in leveraging AI agents, but they don't really know how to manage the risk. And risk management is really key to any of these systems being used in a practical sense outside of hobbyist developers or the lab. So that security shell makes it viable for the enterprise, makes it viable for businesses, because you really need that security. Otherwise, it's not really valid, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do think, however, that a number of other tools and features that have to come along with it. We are still relying on classic limitations of all the tools that will be used alongside with it, to the likes of LLMs, VLMs, you name it, that are limited to context memory available to them and so on. And that in a way limits the capability of these tools, but it kind of also hints perhaps the industry on what should be unlocked next. And I will be making big bets on the next layers of these infrastructures to be unlocked, specifically surrounding memory stacks, detection of different bias patterns associated with agentic workflows, reasoning or actions, and so on. So yeah, I agree with you. It seems like everything happened just at the right time and really now unlocks absolutely different scale of assistance with AI to regular consumers, enterprise consumers, and so on, not just the developers. And yeah, that's really exciting. And all the hardware announcements really supporting that this year.
So in our predictions, you were both hoping to see a little bit more from the RTX Pro range. Now, it wasn't mentioned in the keynote, but the 4500 was released. So can you share with us a little bit about what you know about this particular product?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clever solution. It seems like this card is consuming something around 165 watts of energy. It doesn't require any exotic cooling, which I think will eventually make it more accessible. And yeah, low power, as well as seems like the benchmark for it potentially going to look pretty high as it's built on Blackwell architecture. So yeah, quite excited to see how this may work out, especially as I think it gets harder and harder to build a new data center anywhere you look at.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
It kind of tackles the cost and energy bottlenecks of AI factories today. In fact, NVIDIA had a big section on the shop floor displaying this hardware alongside the rest of the solutions, and that it became apparent that this was really optimized for what data centers need now and moving forward.
Yeah, I think it will have a lot of potential for like running vision AI, potentially inferencing in relation to that, running small language models, but with sensible amount of memory, which is 32 gigabytes. So yeah, that could mean quite a few unlocks for some significant serious work.
It will be exciting to see where it goes, as you said. DLSS 5 was one of the key areas that he started his keynote with, really. Talk to us a bit about DLSS 5, what you took from it, what can we expect to see, how's it going to push things even further? Rafi, we'll start with you.
So obviously by the name, it's the 5th iteration of DLSS. It's a NVIDIA proprietary technology. Where this one differs from previous releases is the AI. There's a unified AI model that now gets natively involved in the rendering of the graphics. So DLSS has always been about improving the rendering capabilities of real-time graphics, so game engine graphics. And this is not just about upscaling. Previously, it was about taking something, looking at an old game and upscaling the graphics or improving the fidelity. This time, there's an AI layer within it that is baked into the real-time rendering process. So AI gets involved in the rendering process as well. So it's a pretty significant step forward. And it just means that the fidelity of the image is just, there's more you can do with the upscaling and the improvement of the fidelity.
Yeah, that definitely allows you to focus on rather the fundamentals of the simulations or renderings than worrying about qualities of shaders or layers of renderings and so on. Yeah, I think that's definitely a nice touch, and it allows to bring right talent to focus on right problems.
Yeah, and the examples he had in the keynote were existing games that are very well recognized, and showing how this technology could be used. It's optional, it's not a mandatory thing, could be used to transform the way they're presented. But you make a really good point. Like, those are existing games, but if we're doing a simulation or if you're creating a digital twin, you don't have to go through the pains of creating very high quality models or high quality texturing. You could have fairly rudimentary or basic 3D models and basic texturing and lighting, and with the right settings in your DLSS, it can basically reinterpret your models to a higher fidelity. So that means there's less heavy lifting up front for us if we're simulating something, but the presentation of it could be that much better. So there are exciting possibilities from a production point of view that is outside of the gaming world. They showed gaming, but it has, could impact the 3D scene generation in general, not just gaming.
Thank you for providing a little bit more context. Of course, the reason why you are such great guests is we're not just talking about the keynote, you were actually there on the floor. So you were our eagle eyes, taking it all in. What were people excited about? What else did you see on the demonstration stands outside? What really got people excited and talking amongst yourselves? AI factories, obviously a huge topic, was discussed in the keynote. But alongside that, what else did you sort of absorb in terms of what people were excited about and how the keynote translates into those conversations, maybe around AI factories to begin with?
Well, last year, AI factories was a topic that was touched on quite a bit in the keynote, but it still felt kind of theoretical. This year, you really got to see how that's being manifested in startups, in businesses that have been around much longer, and NVIDIA also providing very practical, pragmatic solutions really in this space. The keynote touched on lots of different technologies from NVIDIA that really show how this could be applied in the real world, and then you saw those factories very physically there on the shop floor. So it feels like we're moving out of the experimental theoretical side of this stuff and really showing the business benefits and how this stuff can actually be built now in reality. I don't know if that's how you felt.
Yeah, I mean, Jensen spent quite a bit of time explaining how you can now start planning out the efficiency of AI factories being loaded up based on demand of different categories of tokens of different qualities. And for example, you could take the output, let's say 60% of output of AI factory to support majority of regular customers, providing them lower quality, maybe average speed of tokens produced, but at much lower price point, and then take the rest of that capacity and deliver a high quality tokens, more reasoning, more thinking behind every single token produced at much higher speeds. So yeah, we're really entering an era of very different economies in play surrounding inferencing specifically. It sounded like quite a few attendants this year at GTC were from finance sector. So it looks like everyone is trying to figure out, or majority of the people at the moment trying to figure out what is that agentic transaction layer going to look like in near future. And probably there was a lot of discussions in the halls of the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the keynote is just one aspect of the conference. There are hundreds, if not thousands these days, of different workshops that you can go to, seminars, different talks. So how did it compare to previous years? What was your overall? How would you explain it to a friend that's perhaps not been before? How did it stack up?
Well, it was the busiest one for me by far. This year, it happened to be a heat wave. so it was way hotter than previous years. And I think probably the most number of people attended this year. A lot more sort of not just developers, but people from the energy space that aren't developers, but leaders in the energy space, leaders in the financial industry and so on. So wider audience. The Inception Pavilion was really exciting. There are lots of impressive startups. And in general, the buzz was a really good buzz. Really, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement for what's happening in the AI space. I mean, I even got my first Weymo.
Tell us about this, because I did hear. Now, for people who perhaps don't know what that is, it's a driverless taxi, essentially, isn't it?
That's right.
So if we've not been in them ourselves, we've certainly seen them, and I imagine they're quite terrifying. I would want to jump in that front seat. How did you find it?
So initially, when they pulled up, it is a bit odd not seeing a driver in there if you've never been in a driverless car. But by the end of the ride, from where I was staying to the conference center, like 15 minutes or something, it felt completely normal. That was the weird thing. It felt completely normal because the ride felt like a regular car journey. And what was nice is all the stuff that gets talked about at GTC, like computer vision and AI systems, and all of those technologies have sort of converged and come together in something practical that you could use in everyday life, like a driverless car. So throughout the week, whenever I needed a taxi, Weymo was the obvious choice, and it just felt really natural.
Excellent. And you don't even have to make small talk as well, as you sometimes do, especially when you're tired, because I know you were both busy. We'll come back to you. How was your overall impression then of this year? Rafi did mention there about Inception, which is for startups, of which you're part of the Inception Programme. So maybe you could give us a viewpoint from that angle.
Yeah, there were a few new things, I think, this year. Not just for me personally, but generally speaking, organized by Inception teams, VC alliances teams, and so on, that probably worth looking out for next year for attendance. Basically, the experience started obviously the day before. So Troy organized this really well-connecting VC hike where there were various VCs invited, as well as the founders, the builders of startups. That basically ended up in this 2 hours beautiful hike around the area. I think somewhere close to Stanford, which allowed people to connect and kind of share their expectations for the week, as well as share the things they're working on and so on. Really got a few exciting connections. Basically, on the same day at night, there was organized reception for startups and VCs. And amount of people that showed up there was unbelievable. There was so many people, from VCs to builders to founders, as well as many NVIDIA team members, and they were all accessible. It was really a great way to kick off the week, and I think. And we topped it up with a cherry on a pie, which was Springboard Event on Thursday. That was a great way to end the week. The environment, the setup was great, and the guests that came over also were super interesting builders in a space. So yeah, the week was quite intense in terms of sessions, but then a number of events specifically for startups and Inception's members were quite spot on, and the Inception team themselves were all over the place, very responsive and very supportive with anything really. So yeah, well done team. Really happy to be the member of such a progressive and supporting community. Yeah.
So Vova mentioned there, of course, Springboard, which is a Scan event. They host that alongside NVIDIA, and actually physically hosting it was our very own Rafi. The end of the week, we know there's been a lot gone on. It was the crescendo, so to speak. So talk to us about who was there, what sort of conversations were happening, and where did you find the energy from after this busy week?
I mean, the energy was just sort of very contagious, throughout the week. You're running on adrenaline, but there's so much positivity in the community, and that's what Scan Springboard is about. It's about bringing the community together. So whilst we are focused on the UK AI community, and there were several Inception members there. They actually brought along the wider community, the global AI community as well. So there was a lot of startups from the UK scene, but startups from other parts of the world as well. And it was just a really great way to share stories about what we're all trying to do, and each startup is trying to achieve, and sort of trade stories, trade tips, and just the excitement of what this technology that was announced this week, what that means for each of their respective businesses. So it was a cocktail party. We had nibbles, and we had a startup show up that again, they're so early in their journey they didn't really have a name. It was a 2-person startup with a robot arm in a suitcase.
Gosh.
And because there was space, and this was an environment where Inception, the spirit of Inception is to just sort of crack on with your idea and make it happen. So they took the opportunity to open up the briefcase, set up their robot, and so even though it wasn't planned, it was the perfect space for them to demonstrate what their robot arm was capable of doing. And they were training the robot there, and the attendees could then operate the robot with their hand and then contribute to the training data. So it was really exciting. There was a hands-on moment like that. But then, of course, Vova was there as well, and Vova was talking about what Pentatonic are doing. We had people from the energy sector and the fintech sector wanted to understand what this would mean for their sectors and how their sectors could get involved with startups. So it was a brilliant event just to reconnect all of these different startups, but also open them up to other industries, people from other industries that are wanting to learn more about the space.
It's great, isn't it? It's those sort of off-the-cuff conversations, and those fringe events often is where the magic happens. Just thinking about the robot arm in the suitcase, and these duo haven't even got a name. That's the kind of thing you can imagine in a few years. A Netflix documentary about the company that dominates the world started in this small bar with nibbles and cocktails. Hugely exciting. So was it the best one yet for you so far, would you say, in terms of what you saw at GTC, the energy, the developments, the conversations? Is everything just year on year getting bigger and better?
Definitely for me, and the 3 metrics, if you will, for me, the quality of the conversations, the variety of use cases on display, from not just theory but practical applications. So this year's GTC definitely hit both of those. And then the surprise element for the community, like the robot arm, or just connecting sectors in the community that you can never really plan for. Those 3 elements for me, yeah, definitely the best ever.
And for you, would you say best one yet?
Yeah, I think that the most surprises year over year, the Easter eggs, the Nemo claw. I think what I'm really surprised is the speed of adoption of new ideas. It just signals the fact that we're really at the edge of something breaking through big time. Maybe another WWW boom. Did I call it right?
You did.
Right. So yeah, and then given how scarce the resource is, now I think GTC becomes this behind the scenes as well point of getting your hands on GPUs. And I especially enjoyed Springboard because it was the moment when we got some GPUs from Scan to support us with whatever we're doing there. So yeah, really enjoyed that part, obviously, because that just opens up opportunity right away. And yeah, as mentioned earlier, just meeting as a builders of the future is really important. Sanity checking ideas with your peers, running from one place to another to discuss things you've been working on in isolation for quite a bit of time yourself or with the team, and just seeing how actual experts reflect on that was really an important part of this conference this time, because I think everyone is working out there in a space. Everyone is experienced to a degree of FOMO, and potentially working on the same things without really understanding how it all connects together and if anyone else is doing the same thing. And yeah, being there physically and having an access again to everyone contributing into this moment is really something that I think I'm after more than anything else out of this event.
It's your highlight. It's key that though, actually, isn't it? Like you say, a lot of startups, particularly, you are working in things in isolation. You might be a very small team. It can be lonely, and sometimes you're hitting challenges and what we're going to do next. Just to be surrounded by people that get what you're talking about and to be enthused by what they're doing, and those connections that you make is a really key part of GTC as well. So I'm glad you enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it's a huge motivation. Yes, to reflect on things you built and see as people's technical insights on it as well. So yeah, absolutely. I think more people should be joining. We do need to grow San Jose in size to accommodate everyone as well, however.
Well done, both of you. Sounds like you had a fabulous week. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your insights with us. I know you are both jet lagged, so you have done a sterling job today. I'll let you both go and recover, take a deep breath. Well, if you haven't managed to catch any of our coverage live from GTC, do not fear. We've put together a GTC playlist for you on our YouTube channel. The link is below for you, or you can catch that also at scan.co.uk/GTC. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.